Hey everybody, welcome back to Old World Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host Mike, and with me as always is Evan.
Soon to be Pirate King, but that you'll find out about that later. And we also have Garrett with us, who is the proud winner of the most recent RTT at Geeky Tees with his Ogre Kingdoms.
Yes,
Nice.
Hey
absolutely.
there.
Congratulations, Garrett. Good to have you, sir. This is our first, for those who've been watching us for a long time on Old World Legends, our first guest appearance. So there might be a few hiccups and technical difficulties, but we got it working. So Garrett is here with us. Garrett, introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about how long you've been playing and how you ended up with ogres.
So I started playing in 8th edition, and started with lizard men, and then picked up some high elves, and then they blew up the world on us.
Yes.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Bad times.
So I went over to the 9th age, and I picked up ogres while I was playing 9th age.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm back in the old world.
Yeah, it's
The way that it's
fantastic.
meant to
Ogres
be,
are
right?
awesome. Yeah, multiple armies. So yeah, Garrett's been part of the community for a while now. Been crushing it at events. This is not your first win, but this is our first top place at RTT with ogres, which is really exciting. Pretty awesome. Not an easy feat to do, sir. And I know a bunch of people have been asking, hey, we ran through the list, but we'd like to ask some questions specifically of the person who was running that army and who was able to go through those several rounds with that success. So very excited to have you here. Evan, you said you had some places to start. Where do you want to start? Dive in, sir.
Okay, yeah, I think army list building is the logical place to start because if you're going to an event with the intention of trying to do as well as you can, you probably spend a lot of time in the weeks before thinking about what the meta is going to be like, what the scenarios might be like, and what that might mean for your specific build you're taking. Especially, for example, I know your list changed quite a bit with the 1.51 update. And I also know that you tend to play ogres in a different way than I do, at least the couple of times I've actually played them. So I want to ask you about that. So first of all, you have a Tyrant, and you have absolutely fantastic build, Tenderizer, Talisman of Protection. Love it. Okay, I think I've told everyone to death why that's pretty good. And you also, though, have a Slaughtermaster. So tell us a little bit about what you brought, what lore you picked, and why you like that.
So I like illusion because it's so high impact. When you get a spell off with illusion, it changes the outcome of the game most of the time.
Yeah.
Like glittering robes is a fantastic defensive spell, one of the best in the game. -1 to hit is huge for ogres. It means that because ogres are weapon skill 3 for basically all of them, so like going from getting hit on 3s to getting hit on 4s, or if you're up against somebody who's also got crappy weapon skill, going from 4s to 5s is a big deal. And then minus to hit when they're shooting at you and all those kinds of things. It's just it's a big deal for the survivability of the unit there.
Okay.
And then obviously we're hoping to pull Spectral Doppelganger, because that just puts the like offensive capabilities of that unit through the roof. But I don't think that you can take that lore if you don't have some bonus to cast, which is why I took Gret's Sickle. And that, that's the other thing. Like, the unit wants to be running up the table.
Right.
So that's why I think illusion's fine in that one, because like you're gonna be casting at the start of the turn. You're gonna cast Glittering Robes, and then you're gonna like march, and if you can, you'll cast any of the other spells that you can cast at that time. But like in general, it's basically Glittering Robes, move up, threaten the board. And I usually play that unit. I just plop it in the middle of the table and threaten. That gives you the most opportunity to threaten the most of the board with them. And they're movement 6, so if you're marching up 12 inches, you can usually threaten most of the board, by the end of the game.
So that's pretty good. I'm curious with the Spectral Doppelganger choice, because that's one thing that I think a lot of people have fallen as a trap for a lot of their armies, where they construct their whole army around getting that spell off. Whether it's a Vampire Lord on a Zombie Dragon or a whole bunch of other combinations that are just like, yeah, if I get this off, it's going to do so much damage. But it's hard to get off. And it's actually harder to get off now than it was before. So unfortunately, a lot of times people craft invest heavy number of points into something that maybe they'll get off once per game, but there's still lots of games where they'll never get it off at all. So I'm curious why you are hoping for that, and if it doesn't go off, how does the army still function? If that's not really, is your strategy really based around getting it off, or is it would be nice to have, and if it's not going off, what is he doing instead?
So it's nice to have. Like you'll notice the weapon that he's got there is just a sword of might, right? So it's +1
Mm-hmm.
strength, +1 AP.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's nice to have it. You know, a whole bunch of strength 5 AP1 hits, 2d6 is like a lot of hits, and that can tear down a lot of units. But like it's not a game breaking thing if you don't get it, because likely at that point I've got Miasmic Mirage, which is another game breaking spell, and Column of Crystal. Both of those spells dictate who gets the charge. You know,
They're huge.
and so yeah, they're just gigantic. And so I mean, the odds of casting any of those spells is fairly difficult. But you know, with plus D3 and +2, you're much more likely to get it off than you are, you know, if you're just +2. And that's why, and that's why I went for the Slaughtermaster. And also, some magic defense seems like it's worthwhile in general.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And I think the big point there, just to close it up, Evan, real quick, is you're not investing in like an Ogre Blade, right? You're not doubling, tripling down on that combo of, hey, I'm going to spend 70 plus points on a weapon or really kitting out this offense. It's like, to your point, it's a nice to have. And so even that with a strength 5, just a sword of might, not a heavy points investment, it's pretty cool if it goes off. But clearly you're not basing your army around it. And I think that's probably where people get caught in that trap, is they are investing so heavily, hoping that it's going to go off that combo. But you're not doing that. You're actually very happy if you got some of the other key spells as well.
Right, and I think it just turned out to be so. You'll notice the loadout on it has got Grutsickle, he's got the Spangle Shard, he's got, you know, the Sword of Might, and so like those three things combined, like so the Spangle Shard, if he ends up in a combat, it'll keep him alive for one combat, you know, one round of a combat, like a 4-up ward save, in addition to being toughness 5 with 5 wounds and a 5-up regen, like, and -1 to hit most of the time.
That's
like,
very durable.
It's super durable. Like in game 3, I got charged in the flank by a Sphinx, and the Sphinx put all of his attacks into him to try and just get him off the table, and did no wounds.
Wow.
So, you know, after the -1 to hit, like if the Sphinx is hitting on 5s at that point, because he's weapon skill 4 equal with the Sphinx, and like, you know, a lot of big monsters like that are only weapon skill 4.
Yeah, they're typically
hitting,
low weapon skill. Yeah, and going just from hitting on 4s to 5 is massive on how many hits are going to connect. Yeah.
Yep.
So it might also be,
it makes him.
Yeah. It might also be because of the Slaughtermaster is not just a toughness 3 wound elf in the front rank of a combat.
Yeah.
He's almost as good as a bruiser or the tyrant, other than the strength and having like one less attack. You have a guy who's pretty happy with just standing in the front lines and slapping people, right? Most of the time anyway.
Yep, he's a combat wizard for sure.
Yeah. And I love combat wizards. That's fantastic. And one thing I wanted to point out that a lot of people think about is they go, oh, if I'm only level 4 and I need to roll for my spells, well, there's like a third of the time I don't get that one spell I wanted. Well, guess what? You do get to, even if you don't roll Doppelganger, you did roll most of the other spells, which means you definitely, or much higher chance to get Miasmic Mirage if you didn't get Doppelganger, right? Yep. So as soon as you don't roll one spell, it increases the likelihood of getting the other one. So as long as the lore has 2 good ones, you don't necessarily have to like roll Lore Familiar every time and just, you know, hope to get the right one. Right?
Yeah, that was my thought going into this. Like I don't think, because I used to hem and haw between battle magic and illusion for ogres.
Right.
And like battle magic, like with illusion, you just want to be aggressive. You want to get out there. You're like, because you can't cast your ranged spells if you're going to march.
Yep.
And so with illusion, I can just march out there unless I need to cast a Column of Crystal. But you know, if you need to do that, you know, it's like you failed a charge last turn or something, and you need to like, you know.
I find that's probably the turn 2 spells. Like turn 1, you march 12 inches and you cast Glittering Robe.
Yeah.
Turn 2, you're like, well, if the guy's hanging in the backfield, I march 12 inches again. If he ran up towards me and now he's in 1 turn away from charging me, then I cast Column of Crystal, and I don't even have to walk that forward far at all, right? So as you actually went.
You know what's
12,
funny though?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever cast Column of Crystal or Mystifying Mirage
Really?
the whole tournament. Yeah,
That's really interesting to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like to have the option there. There were a few games where it was like it was nice to have that option, and it was like the threat of that was a big deal because they had to kind of respect that.
Yeah, just the
But
fact that
in
you have the spell,
Mhm.
you're gaslighting your opponent just by having the spell, because they don't
Exactly.
know when it could go off. So it's funny how even if sometimes you don't need to cast it, just the threat of it being there, it's like a cannon on the table. Just the fact
Yep.
it might misfire the first time it fires, but just the fact that it's there, you have to respect it. An illusion is definitely one of those lures you have to respect. Illusion. Odds are you're probably not going to get your spells off, but if you do. As you started this conversation with, game changer, right? That's a big thing. And I think, Evan, your point, that's a big thing to keep in mind for people is a big part of the trap of doppelganger is not just you're double or tripling down on that single spell, but now you're taking the lore familiar to take it, so forth and so on, right? It is far more effective, especially in an event when you don't know what opponents you're going to be going against. There are opponents where doppelganger is a great spell. There are plenty of opponents where it's not a good spell. It's just the wrong matchup for that spell. So making sure that when you're taking your wizard, I'm always a fan of not choosing lore familiar, and specifically like there's at least two combos that I'm going to get one or the other with this wizard. I've crafted this caster, melee caster, ranged caster, whatever, or unit buffer or hexer, whatever it is, that there's two loadouts he's going to get depending on what the dice gods are, and both are going to be effective versus doubling, tripling down on one thing. Because even it is very effective, the spectrum of armies out there and the permutations of lists and all the arcane journals, it's not going to be effective versus every list you run into. So that's why having more than one strategy going in, I think, is always, again, if you want a podium, you want to get to the top, having more than one scenario is always a good thing to keep in mind.
I definitely agree, and that's what I feel like Illusion brings to the table for this list is just dictating the flow of the battle, dictating who's going to get the charge, and and just helping you not get wiped out.
Yeah, it's a powerful lore for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about, and I know it's common amongst most ogre players, they love the Ironguts, they want to put a chunk of them, they took the Cannibal Totem, and you're doing all of those things, and you're putting your characters in there. And I look at this as like, I always find the Ironguts disappointing because of the lower weapon skill, they tend to get hit by a lot of attacks, but again, I'm not running Glittering Robe, so maybe that's the problem. And the Cannibal Totem on that banner does give the whole unit the regen, including your characters, so now the characters might be 5 wounds toughness 5, which is not dragon level, but they are triple save, which is pretty cool.
Right.
Yep.
But one question is, have you considered or will you be thinking about taking, instead of the Ironguts, just the bigger bull unit? Because the bulls, in the way we're ruling it, can use parry, so they can have a 4-up save.
Right.
And if you have 4 wide, the ogre bulls, there's only 2 of them that are in the front rank anyway, so if they were just guys trying not to get hurt with their 4-up armor save, or if you're fighting a chaff unit, they just have 4 attacks each instead of 3. That would be fine. And I think you pointed out to me before, the primary difference is like that veteran rule. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so veteran is huge.
Okay.
When you get hit with the stupid gun from the dwarves and you get to roll that twice. When you overrun and wipe somebody out and you need to turn around, to hit something else, or otherwise you're just strung out and you're just having to face the wrong direction. It saves you a full turn of usefulness if you make that versus fail it. And veteran, and Banshee Scream, all those kinds of things. Veteran on your big important unit is just such a big deal.
Okay.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easily top 5 special rules in this edition. Veteran.
Yeah.
It is so powerful. Rerolls are so rare in this edition, and something that says you can reroll all leadership tests is so powerful because, in particular, in this edition, there are so many more opportunities to take leadership tests. You brought up some of them just now, Garrett, with after an overrun or after a follow-up, right? Or test to restrain. You were constantly making leadership tests, more so in this edition of the game than in previous editions. Usually it was just panic or fleeing from combat. Now it's to do offensive things. And to your point, it's a 6-turn game, and those turns 2 to 4 are the most critical turns. And losing one of those critical turns is a game changer. So very powerful.
I mean, it makes being able to reform and face the next target huge. Versus running the whole wrong direction. That's the difference between wiping out another unit and being stuck in the corner for the rest of the game. It's a huge deal. And there were several times where you fail that reform the test to restrain, and then I made the thing. And speaking to that point, my best spent 15 points in the whole army was almost certainly Fistful of Laurels.
Oh yeah.
There were 2 turns where I lost combat by like 1 or 2, and then like let's see.
Explain to people who don't know what it is. What is the Fistful of
So
Laurels?
Fistful of Laurels, it's a 15-point common magic item for ogres. It lets you one time reroll a break check.
Nice.
Yeah. So instead of having a BSB, I took Fistful of Laurels on my champion in the Ironguts, and I think I'd like to try and find a way to fit in another Fistful of Laurels on another unit, or on another on probably the Slaughter Master if I can find the points for it.
Yeah,
Right.
to your point, do you really need to invest in the BSB when the reality is in a given game, it's typically 1 or 2 critical break tests that really matter. A lot of that, it's really not more than that, right? And being able to re-roll that and not having to invest not just points in the BSB, but that's another character allocation that could have been on something else that's more offensive.
Right, and that's the problem with I can't have 3 characters in that unit because then I'm 6 wide in order to have them all in the front. Because you can't have more characters than you have.
Definitely an ogre problem.
Right. And 6 wide is too unwieldy in most maps.
Yeah,
like you'll
really hard to wheel that unit.
Yeah, you can't wheel it. You can only charge straight forward in that instance, and like there's just too many ways to get the unit blocked up. Like 4 wide is really the sweet spot for ogres in my opinion, because like most of the things you're gonna fight are at least 80 millimeters wide. Because like most infantry blocks, most cavalry blocks, they're at least 80 millimeters wide, which means that the whole front rank is going to get to fight. The only things that aren't are like dragons and stuff like that.
It's interesting to see how that's evolving. I think at the beginning of the edition, we definitely saw some people tinkering with Linehammer, but there's a lot of reasons why that hasn't played out. And then we started to see a whole bunch more, the classic older editions, it was really 5 wide and 10 wide. But I think very much so, more recently now, we're seeing 7 and 8 is far more common, I'm seeing in most competitive lists. Again, depending on their 25 or 30 millimeter base, right? They're like cavalry or heavy cavalry, so forth and so on. And so to your point, that 80 millimeter ride is pretty accurate, where again, if especially at least you still get diagonals, so that still helps, but we're not really seeing that 10 wide nearly as much as players are starting to hone in their list and starting to try to min max their list towards the meta.
So yeah, Fistful of Laurels. So
love it.
So then we have a couple more units. Go for it.
Sorry, I guess I wanted to point out in game 2 I had a combat that I lost by I think 1 point, and I rolled like an 11. And I was gonna flee, and probably maybe I think I was likely to get run down because it was against Beastmen. And re-rolled it with Fistful of Laurels, got like a 3 after that, and everything was fine, and I went to just like wipe everything out after that. And then in game 3, I was forced to charge into a big block of skeletons with a Sphinx on the side. So I think I lost combat by like 1 or 2 maybe. But I was double outnumbered because there were so many skeletons. And I'd lost a few ogres, and so I rolled like I think I rolled a 9, but because I was losing by 1 or 2, instead of a Fabigo, it was a full flee.
Problem.
And then I rolled it again and got a 6, and everything was great.
So basically, that 15-point item won you the tournament because you would have lost potentially both of those games.
Definitely.
Or I don't know if it's won him the tournament. I think it prevented him from losing.
And those are very important points to spend. Right?
Yeah. Prevented him from losing those games for sure. Key. And again, sometimes it comes down to, right, and I think that's one of the fun things about Old World is because you don't have a million rerolls everywhere, because you're not rolling buckets full of dice, there is a lot of swing one way or another. So one turn, one army could be dominating, and some crazy, awesome, fun story to tell your friends can happen. It could swing the other way. So the few times where you can find a reroll, it's very powerful.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, 100%. So what I'm thinking is that we ask you a couple questions about the rest of your army, because, again, maybe some of these units are a little unorthodox to people. And then I want to ask you about the individual games you played and what you're thinking about with the matchups. So But first, so we've got in special units, you had the 4 Mournfang, and you took great weapons. I know a lot of people debate whether you should have the Iron Fist for just better armor or the great weapon for just being able to actually hurt halfway decent things. And you have the Bull Standard for the rerolling of the impact hit damage. I find, and I think this would be a fantastic unit if it wasn't really hard to wheel around on the table and really easy for someone to like land a Black Orc, Warboss, and Wyvern in front of you. I got really bad touched once because of that. How did you feel using a unit that's 200 millimeters wide?
So in game 1, they were focused down by all of my opponents shooting in magic attacks, which I was fine with because they weren't part of. I mean, like they were a threatening part of the board, but like if that meant the rest of my army was safe, I was willing to make that trade. And then in game 2. They also got hit with a couple of Vile Tides, but they were threatening a full flank and taking a lot of pressure off of my main Death Star. And they still did a bunch of damage. I think they killed 3 wizards or something. Maybe it was just 2 wizards.
So they got into the Vile Tide like swarm?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They went into one of those units that had a whole bunch of Vile Tides and stuff. They eventually got like countercharged by another chariot, and like they didn't get wiped out. There was only one left at the end, but like they did plenty. Taking threat, taking
aggro
focus. Yeah, taking aggro, and then killing a couple of wizards. And for one turn, they even stole the Herdstone away from my opponent, and like stopped a lot of the like wizard casting and nonsense that the Herdstone can do.
Herdstone's really powerful.
Yep. So they were very useful in game 2, and then in game 3 they really went gangbusters. Like I started them out next to the Death Star, but then they kind of went on separate paths. My opponent left, so I got in turn 1 and did a bunch of wounds to one of the Sphinxes with my
Slaughtermaster?
lead belchers.
Oh, that, yeah.
With my lead belchers. I got two hits, and they did 4 wounds to a Sphinx, so he only had 2 wounds left. So Andrew started moving him kind of the opposite direction, but then he moved up a Tomb Scorpion in front of him, and so I was able to charge into the Tomb Scorpion, kill the Tomb Scorpion, and then overrun into the Sphinx. And then I was just free and clear on that flank to come around the side and just start killing everything in his back line.
Oh, damn.
So then the next turn, they ran into the I can't talk today. That thing, the sarcophagus thing that caused the Casket of Souls. So then they killed the Casket of Souls and then overran into his like unit of light cavalry, and then they overran into the Shabti. And so they just like crushed his whole backline after killing a Sphinx and a Scorpion. So like I think that's kind of like that was the moral of the story, is that like most of the units in the army, if you don't respect them well enough, can just punch so hard,
Right.
Like and it's like so in game 1 they were focused down, but in game 2 and game 3 they weren't focused down quite as much, and so they got to do a lot more. And that was kind of like the same thing. Like in games 1 and 2, the Yetis did a whole bunch, getting in flanks and just making combats way better. Because actually in game 1 they got into a rear charge, and then in game 2 they got a big flank charge, which against Beastmen, they're light infantry, or open order.
Yes.
Yeah, they're open order, and so like anything in their flank takes all of their rank bonuses away.
Yes.
So like they were -1 to hit me, because then they went from weapon skill 4 to weapon skill 3.
Yes.
Which means that they're hitting on 4s, and then if I got them spell up, it was 5s again, and then they're also losing all of their rank bonus, and it just like swung combats like massively, just having those Yetis in the flank.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because Yetis seem to be pretty rare for people to bring. Now, just so people know, I think that I personally suggested that we play the Cooling Aura as just the unit you're touching has the -1 weapon skill, because going it model by model is absolutely nuts. You have no idea what you rolled to hit should be if one model gets hit by -3 and the other one doesn't. Like, how does that work? So just if your unit's touching it, so if the Yetis go in there in a flank, they can just lower that whole unit's weapon skill by 1, which is pretty cool. And
It's still very powerful.
yes,
Just that
but it just simplifies it. It makes it less stupid, and that's
great. Well, that's in our owl FAQ. That's how we've been playing it for a while now. Yeah.
Yes, and Yetis have
and that's
Vanguard?
how we played it in this game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, they do. I didn't end up using it in game 3 because I wanted to have the opportunity to charge. But in most of the other games, it helped them just get out onto a flank. Get out where they need to be threatening of my opponent, and it's just they just punch above their weight. Being strength 5 and swift stride and move through cover, they're just underestimated much of the time.
Yeah, they're a pretty wacky unit because they're also infantry. So if you do charge like Empire Knights, they can't countercharge you, and you actually probably win that. Even if you're only AP, because I think they're only AP 1, right? But
I think they're AP 1 with Armor Bane.
Right, and a lot of the guys you want to fight, that's probably okay. It's because you have just so many attacks, and you just go whack people, and you're really fast. Because Yetis also have Swift Stride. I don't know if people know this. What a weird unit, and they're not that expensive. Like I really usually like to try to bring Man-Eaters, but 4 Man-Eaters, so 4 Yetis is 192 points. 4 Man-Eaters is like 300 something. So same number of wounds and not as fast, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're I think the most similar thing to them is the skin changing wolves, right?
Skin wolves,
right? So skin wolves, they're very similar in terms of a lot of output, very fast. A good chunk of special rules. There are some differences there. Neither unit has a ton of armor or a ton of defense, but they are a heck of a threat if they hit a flank.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's kind of just like a lot of the units in the army kind of fall into that category where if you ignore them, they become a huge problem, but they aren't like super threatening on their own, And that's Yetis, lead belchers. If you give it like a tier list, like my Death Star, my Gut Star is probably like out of 5, it's 5 stars. You have to deal with this or it's gonna kill you. And then like the Yetis are probably like a 3, and like the
Lead belchers.
Mournfangs. The lead belchers are probably also a 3, and then the Mournfangs are probably a 4.
Yeah, but if there's enough threat, and I think that's the big thing what you're doing, if you're playing aggressively, you just get threat overload where you're not going to kill all the ogres in one turn no matter what you do, so something's going to charge you. So it's like, okay, what are you doing here? And I think that's a big thing that I see where you're very aggressive in the way you play it. Take board control, get in your opponent's face, force them to make choices, and then capitalize with you have enough speed, you have enough punch that even if something is wounded here or there, you have 1 or 2 things that can hit it. And clearly you have been very effective, at least certainly at this event.
Yep. It worked really well this time. And then the Witchers, I think, are kind of like the last thing to talk about. They just, because you guys decided that infantry should be scoring, I guess there was only one mission where that really mattered, which was mission number 2.
Yes.
At this event. Yeah.
Yeah, at this event. They got to just move up and threaten things. In game 2, they were on anti-Tusker duty. My opponent had 4 Tuskers, which are just so difficult to deal with for basically anybody.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of Tuskers.
That's a lot.
Razor Gores, right?
Razor Gores. You're right.
Razor. Yeah.
That's what they're called, Razor Gores. And they're just so threatening. Pigs that hurt. They do impact hits. They've got like 3 or 4
really
attacks. They're strength 5. They're toughness 5. But if they take 1 hit from the solid shot from the lead belchers, suddenly they're down to 1 wound.
Yes, that's true.
And they're much less likely to just win a combat or get into a flank and cause all kinds of nonsense. When they've only got 1 wound left. And that's kind of what happened. That none of them ever just wiped out Razor Gore.
Right.
But I'd get a hit in and do a wound, and then all of a sudden that Razor Gore is way less threatening.
Yeah, because everything in your army has 3 wounds and 3 attacks at least. So if the Razor Gore hits anything, it will die by the end of that turn.
Yeah,
it's much more likely to. Yeah.
Yes, after it has lost the first 2. Okay, so now I just want to ask you about your games. So, game 1, who was your opponent, and what kind of problems did they ask you to, figure out how to solve, and how did you solve them?
So in game one, I was up against Stuart, who was playing Slaaneshi demons. He had a Keeper of Secrets and a Demon Prince and some Flamers and a huge block of Demonettes. So what ended up happening? The Demonettes were kind of on one flank. We were on the river map, so we were kind of fighting over the bridge. I put the gut star like right in front of the bridge, expecting to come across.
My bridge. That's what Garrett said.
And then he came at them kind of. He had his general, the Greater Demon of Slaanesh, the Keeper of Secrets, in the middle of the board, more or less. I had Yetis that kind of moved up. Oh no, those were on the other flank. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting my games confused at this point.
No worries.
Anyways, he ended up charging into he moved his Keeper of Secrets, because it's like move 9 or 8 or something, like all the way across into my shadow of line of sight, so that like nothing could charge it. So what I ended up doing was turning to face that, leaving my Tyrant on the far side of the unit, so that if he charged in with his Demon Prince, then he'd be right up against my Tyrant.
Right.
And so then he did end up charging into that unit with both his Demon Prince and his Keeper of Secrets. The Demon Prince was in the flank, but then he decided to challenge with the Demon Prince, and I took it up with my Tyrant, and he did no wounds to the Tyrant, and the Tyrant did 9 back or something like that.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. I rolled hot on the triple wound like thing, so
it happens.
I think I won that combat by like 9 or something like that.
Oof.
Making the Keeper of Secrets take a whole bunch of wounds and give ground. I think it had 2 wounds left, and so then we then it was my turn next, and I decided to charge it and just killed it like immediately.
Yeah, that's what happens to you if you charge an enemy unit and you lose the combat. You lose the game. So when you make a charge, yes, getting to have a charge off is great, but if you calculate wrong about what's going to happen, it very often puts the other person, especially because they can reform with the veteran, very often puts the other person in a game-winning situation to have won a combat on your turn. So be very careful about that.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the thing. I had Glittering Robes off that turn, and so the Keeper of Secrets with his 6 attacks, I think he flubbed his attacks, had like 1 or 2 hits. I think he went into the Wizard, and then the Wizard just didn't take any damage, you know?
Yeah.
The Slaughtermaster didn't take any damage because I have the 4-up ward and top 5 and -1 to hit, you know? And it was just like, he did 1 wound, so it was like 1 to like 9, plus I have 2 ranks and a banner, you know? So it was a pretty convincing win there. And then his other big threat was the Slaanesh demons, the demonettes. The Yetis ended up getting in their rear while a unit of Bombardiers charged in the flank. I actually had a triple charge where I had the Yetis charging into the rear, the Bombardiers charging into a flank, and the tribesmen, the Bulls charging into the front. But the Bulls failed the charge, and everybody else made it in. But that, I mean, like, it was fine though. I mean, like that one ground on for a few turns, and then eventually after the Ironguts had wiped out the 2 major demon threats, they were ready to charge into the front, and that's when we called the game.
It kind of feels like nothing in his army, none of those like demonettes can stand up to any of your units, because just strength 4, a lot of attacks, Master Infantry can pretty much just wail on those things and not take that much damage in return. So ouch. And
his flamers and his magic casting, he had another caster that was on a disc of Zinch. They put all of their range damage into the Mournfangs, and they did eventually wipe out the Mournfangs. And that's why they didn't really play a role in that game. But like I said, that's all they did. And the only thing he had left on the table at the end were those flamers.
Yeah,
pretty
but
much
to your
everything had
point,
been
that's
wiped
what the
out.
demon player's best strategy is he cannot take on all that ogre
Yep.
gut all at once. And so, right,
Exactly.
his strategies, he needs to whittle them down. He needs to funnel you with terrain. He needs to just focus fire so that he needs to maximize 6 turns in order to flip that around. But if you're able to threat overload him and saying, nope, I'm going to be on top of you with 3/4 of my army on turn 2, whether you like it or not, and he's not able to counter that, the ogres are just going to overwhelm at that point. And I think that's what happened. Like, yes, he still did kill something, but you were able to then distribute his firepower in his army and able to take out enough things that it just flipped the table at that point, because too many things at once for the demons to handle in that particular situation.
Right. And if
Yep,
I
I
was
agree.
playing the demons, I would want to use my superior, potentially mobility, to try to send the keeper and the demon prince into the units that are not full of characters and go fight, the 4-man lead belcher, stuff like that, and see if I can't just go and kill them off and then try to avoid fighting the Gutstar. And if the Gutstar has to fight something, he can fight my demonettes who probably are going to die anyway. That's what I would do.
Yeah, feed it something for sure. But not everybody thinks that way, right? And definitely everyone, we all are susceptible to the bloodlust of once the models hit the table and the dice are in hand, we're charging in no matter what.
You got a greater demon. I mean, it's got to be able to kill stuff, right?
I always remind everybody, it's a 6-turn game. You don't have to win on turn 2, but everybody's, because we all get excited once the armies are lined up. So that being said, Stuart's a great guy. It's a great list. I was so excited to see it. So I'm really glad I had a fun game there.
Okay, and it sounds like you played Beastmen in round 2. So was it Wild Herd, the scary boogeyman?
I do believe it was Wild Herd. It's the one that gives plus to their cast when there's casters nearby, right?
Yeah.
Oh, was that Tyler's list with a whole bunch of Viletide?
Tyler with a whole bunch of Viletide.
Beautiful army and really good, strong list. Very strong list.
Yeah. It was pretty threatening. I was scared of the Viletide, but you just kind of have to suck it up, So I think, let's see what happened. He basically was getting every spell off to start with. Like, I couldn't dispel anything. I think I was rolling 1 lower than I needed to dispel every spell that was coming my way. It's like he rolled an 11 total, and I get an 11 in return, and it's just like,
so close.
Yeah, so just because happening, and I was taking against the chin, but then combat started. We ended up basically the lead belchers were skirmishing with the razor gores. The tribesmen were, or not tribesmen. Sorry, I've got 9th Age on the brain still. The bulls were also kind of like, I think he made a mistake on that flank because he let the bulls get out of the charge arc of the razor gores. And so they were just kind of threatening the flank of the razor gores. And then I had lead belchers in the front, just like peppering them, plinking a couple of wounds off here and there. And then on the other flank, I had the Mournfangs moving up on the left flank, and they were threatening to come in from the rear on a whole bunch of units over there and just disrupt his ability to score on that side.
Yeah, it sounds like target saturation, right? Like just instead of having a single dragon with 9 wounds, that's it's so scary that he spends 5 Viletides at this one guy. You've kind of got a lot of stuff that if it gets into most of his things, are pretty happy munching through, gore blocks and primal herd, stuff like that.
And that was kind of like the story of this one. Like, so it ended up being like the Gutstar got into the front of his 2 blocks of units, his 2 big blocks. And then the Yetis got in the flank, and then once that happened, they just disintegrated, I killed both big blocks. Yeah,
that sounds great.
It was kind of a neat thing. So in the first combat, there was it was kind of tricky because a Razor Gore, the Yetis declared a charge against the Razor Gore. Then the Razor Gore fled, but it fled through one of those units, and they got to just chase it, and then they ended up in the flank, accidental contact to one of those units, causing disruption and just making it so much easier for the Gutstar to just wipe them out.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a great game. It was so much fun. And again, he did get a charge off, and he had so much static combat res that he made me lose combat by like 1 or 2, and then I rolled an 11 for the first
Oh
roll,
no!
and then rolled it again and got a 6. So it was like just a
That's a lot better than an 11. That feels a
Yeah.
lot better.
yeah, both times that I used Fistful of Laurels in
Yeah.
the tournament, it turned a full flee into a give ground. Like
Massive.
not even a fallback in good order. It was
Yeah.
a full just a
It didn't
give
win you
ground.
the game, but it prevented you from losing from that
Exactly.
roll. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then the Tuskers kept moving up the flank and the rear, and the Ironguts kept moving up the front, and like he had 2 wizards in his second unit that I engaged, and we eventually killed them. And he had 2 units of wizards in his skirmish unit, and the Tuskers killed them. And I think basically he just had like a couple of skirmishers left and his general on a chariot at the end of the game. Whereas, what did I lost? I lost half of the Mournfang unit.
Yeah.
Because I had 1 guy left. I think.
Okay.
So like that's about.
Yeah.
Those were my only losses.
And if people are
I
wondering,
think that was the other thing.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, Viletide is very good against low wounds, high saves models, but you actually have a crap load of guys who have 3 or 4 wounds each, and you don't have that much armor. So the whole like I ignore your armor save part isn't actually doing as much as it usually does. If you're fighting against Empire Knights or Blood Knights, yeah, Viletide's fantastic. But against like Ironguts, they have a lot more wounds than a unit of equally pointed number of knights, for example.
I think he did roll a little bit low.
Okay.
On his rolls, but he killed. I think he did like so. His first turn, he killed like 5 wounds of Ironguts with that. After I made my regen saves, and then he did like 4 wounds to the Mournfangs on another turn. So like when they charged in, there were only 3 of them or 2 of them. I think there were 3 of them.
Right.
When they charged in, instead of the full 4. So, I mean, like, it was doing damage, but like you said, I've got a whole bunch of wounds. Like, it's pretty hard to get through all of them. And so it just wasn't quite fast enough before I started taking wizards off the board.
Great. So then in your last round, you were playing against Andrew with the Tomb Kings, and you guys were pretty much like tied or similar close in score for the highest number of battle points by that point. And I always like to point that out. Because Andrew ended up in 3rd place, even though he was kind of in the tournament winning position if he had beaten you. And so you're playing against Tomb Kings, one of the armies that people say, oh God, how do I defeat this? So how did you defeat it? I mean, that's the question.
It's a good list. It's a good list.
It is. So he had 2 Sphinxes on my left flank, and he had 1 Sphinx on my right flank. I put the Ironguts in the middle again, and he also had his skeletons and his Shabti on the back. So I just pushed forward with my Gut Star, and we kind of danced around on the left flank a little bit. Like I threatened to charge with the Yetis into one of the Sphinxes, but I failed it, and then he charged me back, and I fled because I got cold feet. Because I'd done the math, it's like the Yetis
are known for cold feet. That is a known fact.
So it ended up being okay because the Yetis didn't really do anything except they fled away and they were still there on the board at the end. So they ended up taking that table quarter because there was nobody in my home table quarter.
Well, they did something. They distracted him.
Right.
He was charging
them for like
else.
2 turns.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
It is a lot. They distracted the Sphinx. It never got into combat.
So now you're only having to deal with 2 Sphinxes, not 3 at the same time. And
they held a table quarter. And then I got lucky on turn 1 with my lead belchers. 1 unit connected with one of the Sphinxes twice and did 2 hits to it, 2 wounds to it, and then they do multi-wound too. So the Sphinx was down to 2 wounds out of 6. Mm-hmm. And basically, that took it out of the game because he also got cold feet.
He got cold feet on the Sphinx, also known for cold feet.
Yeah, he started trying to play conservative with it, but then I was able to overrun into it and just kill it with the Mournfangs.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those units, like a lot of the small to mid-range monsters that don't have a ton of wounds. They have a high toughness, but their armor profile or defensive profile isn't super strong like a character on a dragon or anything. So, if you could spike a couple dice, right, and nick off 2 or 3 wounds on those things, suddenly they're very vulnerable, even to blocks of infantry at that point. So, it is those pot shots, you roll a little bit above average can make a big difference.
And this is why I want to bring up that I think that shooting has a really critical place to be in this game, because shooting allows you to engage with your opponent's units from a safe distance and wait and see what spikes happen or not. And as soon as you get a spike, you can then exploit it by using your combat troops in a way that maybe they would not have won an engagement before, but because the shooting happened in this particular way, now they can win the engagement. So your shooting allows your combat troops to fight above their weight class in the same way that like a spell or a hex might have done in yesteryear. And I just think that that's something that people should be taking more advantage of. And I played 3 games of the event, and 2 of the opponents had no shooting at all.
Yeah. And I think, again, a lot of people were heavily skewed by it because of the old dragon meta with the 2+ save and the invincible cast lord, and the shots did nothing. But that's no longer the meta. The meta's evolved. The 1.51 certainly has changed things. The match play guide has changed things. And so, again, we're encouraging people to relook at your missile troops or your ranged units and reevaluate them, right? There's a lot more value they can bring than just having to try and take down the dragon. In particular, taking down or wounding, scoring things, or other smaller mid-sized monsters, absolutely. And I'd say maybe not safe distance. I don't think any place on the table is safe in the old world. I'd say safer distance, probably, because it's a dangerous game out there on the battlefield.
Yeah, that's the idea. They get to stand in their table quarter that they're going to score in and lob shots down and still affect the battle.
That makes sense.
That was very useful, and they were esteemed especially useful against the. So they did end up doing 8 wounds total to different sphinxes. They didn't ever kill a sphinx, but they did a bunch of wounds.
That's huge.
Right. That one that was chasing the Yetis, eventually, because it had to ignore them in order to be a part of the main battle, eventually I spiked again with that same unit of lead belchers, took 4 wounds off of it, and now he can't even dare send it into the combat because I've got a tyrant there who can kill it with 1 hit.
Yeah, if it's only got 2 wounds, the tyrant can take it down fairly reliably.
Yeah.
Yep. I can throw 2 or 3 hits at it, or 2 or 3 attacks at it, and he's extremely likely to just kill it outright.
Yeah, if it was full health, no problem. But when you're down to 2, that's a risky venture. Yeah.
And if people are wondering, the solid shot, we didn't change any rules about that. The solid shot is actually relatively the same as like an Ushabti Great Bow. It's mostly just the range and the to hit penalty that the ogres have that Ushabti don't have. But otherwise, you're just like, if you don't move and they're relatively close, you just roll to hit, and then you have like a strength 5 AP2 multi wounds 2 hit. I think
it hit hard.
Solid
it hits
shot.
real hard.
And there's a lot of things in the game like lanterns or necrosphinxes that a couple of those, and you're like, oh wow, that actually just kicked the crap out of me. Damn.
Yep.
Yeah, that was another, to that point, like lead belchers. I felt like there are a lot of chariot units and things like that are toughness 4, toughness 5, that having multi-wound and strength 5 and AP2 would just be very useful against, like the lanterns, our local boogeyman playing high elves with a whole bunch of those chariots
Sky
that fly.
cutters.
What are they
Sky
called?
cutters. Yeah,
Sky
two
cutters.
hits with that.
Yeah.
2 hits with the lead belchers, they would just take down a sky cutter, which is great. So multi wounds 2 is a great number because there's a lot of things that are 4 wounds actually.
And there's not a lot of multi-wound 2 on ranged attacks in the game, right? You certainly get that on like the big war machines, but on ballistic skill shooting or things like that, it's not very common. So very powerful.
So,
yeah. What else? Anything else in that game? Any big takeaways?
I mean, I started getting super lucky. So, like, at the first half of the game, he was getting every spell he wanted off. And then in the second half of the game, I was shutting down every spell. I was getting off every spell that I was casting.
The dice gods giveth and they take
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you heard me, but I was just, like, whooping and hollering.
That happens.
The dice were just going my way, and that's just kind of how it went out at the end of the game.
But they didn't, as you said, the entire game. It was at the earlier half. It was going his way, right? And it just shifted. And luckily, it shifted in your favor at the right time. And sometimes 1 or 2 critical rolls, makes a big difference.
It was uncanny. All of my dispel attempts were one less than they needed to be. It was I think we
Yeah,
got up
right.
to like 7 or 8 in a row where I was one less than I needed to be to get the spell off or to stop the spell. And
you have to beat their roll. That's the hard part.
exactly.
It's harder. Dispelling is harder than casting. Yes.
Uh-huh. So but then eventually the tides turned. The whatchamacallit, the Mournfang got into his rear and his flank and just started dismantling all of the pieces of his army.
Once it got back there.
Damn.
Yeah, because that typically is the problem. They typically have the Tomb King bunker. And if you can get something into the bunker in the back early enough in the game, turn 6 is a little late, but if you can get it over there in turn 4 or 5, it's going to make a huge difference.
Yep. And so then they wiped out like 5 different units that game.
Once you get back there, you're just gonna pop the bunker. Yeah. The problem is getting to the bunker.
Yeah, and they're gonna average about 8 impact hits with rerolls to wound at strength 5, AP 1, armor bane 1. That really does a lot of damage to a lot of different targets.
Okay, so you're a big fan of the bull standard, basically.
I love the bull standard on them.
Okay.
It's so good. I mean, there are gonna be games where they get shot off the table and they don't do anything. But then they were just the distraction for the other units that went and did everything. And then there's going to be games where they just run up and just are unstoppable because they just have such a high. I think somebody did the math at one point, and of all of the monstrous cavalry out there, they have the most output.
Yeah, damage output.
You're looking
for
at you're looking at like 12 attacks per No, is it 9? It's 9 attacks per model basically each turn.
Yeah. So if you get any number of Mournfang into something like zombies or skeletons or goblins, the other person will pick up the dead in buckets.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, congratulations, Garrett. It was an awesome victory. Super cool to put on the channel. That Ogres won one of our events, which is exciting, and it was not an easy road. You definitely fought some tough lists, in particular with that Vile Tide list, and then going to a very veteran Tomb King player list as well. So well done, sir. Any last closing thoughts or anything, Garrett, you'd like to share with everybody?
Just thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, we appreciate it. It was great to have you. Our first guest on the show, hopefully of more to come. Hopefully the community enjoys it as much as we did. Evan, any last words, sir?
I just need to tell everyone to stay legendary, okay?
All right. We'll see you all next time.